If you've ever tasted a tear, you know that unmistakable, sharp sting of salt. It feels, well, it's almost like a tiny drop of the ocean resting on your cheek. But why on earth would our bodies produce salt water for our eyes? To really get this, we have to look at the chemistry. Now, your tears are roughly 98% pure water, but it's that remaining 2% that changes everything. This tiny fraction, that's where the magic happens. Tears are salty because they contain electrolytes, specifically sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. These ions are some of the most critical electrolytes in the human body. By the end of this, you'll understand why your eyes aren't just leaking water, but are actually deploying a complex chemical shield. To understand where that salt comes from, we have to look at the plumbing. Now, land-dwelling animals evolved a lacrimal apparatus to keep the eyes wet while on land. And in humans, this system is a marvel of biological engineering. It's essentially a tiny, high-precision irrigation system. Now, you might think your eyes are like little reservoirs, but the truth is, we don't have a storage tank for tears. Instead, they're created due to a sensory trigger, produced on demand by the lacrimal glands. These almond-shaped organs sit just above your outer eyelids, acting as the mactary. Once triggered, the fluid floods the surface of the eye and drains away through tiny holes in the corners of your lids, eventually flowing into your nose. It's a constant, rhythmic cycle of production and drainage that keeps your vision clear and your cornea protected. Let's look at the chemistry inside us. Your body is essentially a walking saltwater reservoir, carrying nearly 250 grams of salt at all times. To put that in perspective, that's about half a pound of salt just circulating within your tissues and fluids. It's roughly the weight of a standard box of table salt just floating inside you. Because this concentration is constant, it's only natural that any fluid your body produces, including tears, would carry that same salty signature. But these aren't just random seasonings. This salt comes in the form of electrolytes, which are natural salts required for your nervous system to function and for information to transfer between nerve cells. Without them, your brain simply couldn't talk to your muscles. While sodium gets all the attention, there are other important electrolytes at work here too, like calcium, bicarbonate, phosphate, and magnesium. Each one plays a specific role in keeping your biological electrical grid running. When you cry, you aren't just leaking water, you're releasing a precise chemical cocktail that mirrors the internal environment of every single cell in your body. Most of us assume a tear is just a tear, but the biology is far more specialized. The human eye uses different types of tears for different purposes, meaning we aren't just leaking one kind of fluid. In reality, humans have 3 types: basal, reflex, and emotional. These 3 distinct types act like a chemical toolkit, each tailored to a specific biological need. You've got your basal tears, which are the constant, silent guardians of your vision. Then we have reflex tears, which surge in response to an irritant. And finally, there are emotional tears, sometimes called psychic tears, which appear only when our internal state shifts. It's a strange realization, isn't it, that the fluid on your eye changes its very nature, depending on whether you're chopping an onion or mourning a loss. This is where the chemical signature of our grief differs from the chemistry of our protection. Every time your eyelids close, a thin layer of lacrimal fluid called basal tears is spread over the eye surface. This isn't just about keeping the eyes moist, it's a high-precision biological shield. These basal tears consist of 3 layers: an inner mucus layer touching the eyeball, a middle watery layer, and an outer oily layer to prevent evaporation and keep the surface smooth. Together, this tear film works to protect the eye surface and maintain clear vision while ensuring your corneas are nourished. Inside this fluid, you'll find a complex cocktail of water, lipids, mucin, immunoglobulins, sodium, and potassium. It even includes antioxidants like ascorbate and urate. Now, the primary goal is to protect the eye from foreign pathogens and bacterial contaminations, washing away debris and viruses. But here is the fascinating part. Bacteria generally thrive in fresh water, but the salinity of your tears makes the environment of the eyes unpleasant and hostile for bacterial growth. Therefore, by inhibiting the growth of pathogens, your tears act as an extension of the immune system to keep eyes safe and healthy. Then we have reflex tears. These are triggered by a peripheral sensory system of nerve endings in the eye that respond to mechanical, thermal, chemical, or pain stimuli. Whether you're chopping onions, the wind is whipping through a storm, or you've just touched your eye after slicing a pepper, these irritant tears respond to intense external stimuli. Interestingly, almost all land-dwelling animals, except snakes and amphibians, have this same peripheral sensory system that triggers reflex tears. It's a fascinating bit of biological laziness. The body just uses what it already has. I mean, why waste energy creating a specialized fluid when you can simply use the body's own salty chemistry? This efficiency extends even to other mammals. Elephants, for instance, produce tears primarily due to irritation. But nature has a way of turning that protective mechanism into a buffet. There's a specific insect called the Lobocrasis grissyfusa moth, which actually irritates an elephant's eye to make it produce tears, and then the moth simply drinks them. It's a strange, opportunistic loop. A giant mammal's defense system becomes a cocktail of electrolytes for a tiny moth. Now let's shift from the mechanical irrigation of the eye to something far more unique. Humans are the only animals that produce tears due to emotion. While a dog or an elephant might cry because of dust, only we experience those psychic tears that spill over during intense emotional experiences, whether it's overwhelming happiness or profound grief. This isn't just a reflex, it's a complex neurological process controlled by the prefrontal cortex and the anterior portion of the limbic lobe of the brain. But how often does this actually happen? In a study involving 286 women and 45 men aged 18 to 75, the data shows a stark contrast. Women averaged 5.3 crying episodes per month, and men averaged only 1.4. This gap widens and shifts as we grow. Between 11 to 16 years of age, boys tend to cry more from physical pain, while girls cry more for empathetic reasons, such as movies or TV shows. Interestingly, there's a significant decrease in crying frequency for both genders between the ages of 10 to 17, the same age where boys see the biggest drop. This sudden decrease is often attributed to either societal context, the old big boys don't cry mantra, or a hormonal shift involving increased testosterone during puberty. It makes you wonder, what is the brain actually releasing into those few remaining tears? Psychic tears have a different composition compared to basal and reflex tears. Instead of just protecting the eye, these tears are chemical messengers. The chemical makeup of human tears changes based on your emotions, which means the salt and water are now joined by a high concentration of protein-based hormones. Tucked away in this fluid is a mild analgesic substance called leucine and enkephalin. But why does the body produce this specific mix? Well, the protein concentration of emotional tears is 24% greater than that of irritant tears. This difference in density creates a physical change in how the tear moves. Higher protein tears fall more slowly down the face. They don't just splash or run, they cling to the skin, creating a slow-motion trail. This slow fall is thought to have evolved to give our fellow humans more time to react and provide emotional support. It's a biological signal. Eye tracking studies show that humans focus way more on faces with tears and are more aroused by them. Your body isn't just reacting to a feeling, it's deploying a complex chemical signal to ensure you are seen and heard. This change in chemistry leads to a strange physical side effect, the puffy eye. Emotional tears contain fewer electrolytes, less salt, than basal or reflex tears. Now, remember that water always moves toward areas of higher salt concentration through a process called osmosis. Because the fluid on the surface of your eye is less salty than the tissues underneath the skin, water is drawn from the tear into the surrounding tissues. This causes the eyelids to swell and become inflamed. Therefore, the very chemistry that signals your distress to others is exactly what makes you look like you've been crying. But the chemistry goes even deeper. Researchers have found that tears resulting from endogenous depression are chemically different from those resulting from acute grief. The distinction is written right into the fluid. Even more unsettling is how these responses can persist when the mind is gone. Studies on brain-dead people showed they produce tears when their organs are removed and slightly open their eyes when a stimulus is applied. It shows that the body's plumbing can sometimes act on its own, triggering a physical response even when the consciousness that usually drives our tears has vanished. It's wild to think how our understanding of this fluid has shifted. For a long time, we've seen this as a human emotional trait, but some animals use salt excretion in a completely different way. Consider the sea turtle. Sea turtles live in an environment where they're constantly taking in salt from the ocean, but they can't drink fresh water. To survive, they have specialized salt glands that essentially cry out excess salt to prevent their bodies from dehydrating. While we cry because of a broken heart or a piece of onion, the sea turtle cries to stay alive. It's a stark contrast. For us, the salt is a reflection of our internal balance. For the turtle, the tears are a biological exhaust pipe for salt. But why do we keep this visual and auditory signal? For infants, some scientists believe crying is an adaptive strategy known as the acoustic umbilical cord, specifically designed for eliciting care and protection from caregivers. The biological response is immediate. In lactating females, infant crying can actually cause a rise in breast temperature and trigger the milk letdown reflex. In essence, it's a powerful wordless communication system. Interestingly, crying seems to fall off around 24 months old, which coincides exactly with the rapid development of spoken language. This leads some scientists to posit that humans cry simply because we don't have the words to explain how we're feeling. We use the salt and the sound when the vocabulary fails us. Our eyes are not merely leaking water, but are acting as a biological mirror of our internal chemistry. From the almond-shaped lacrimal glands that constantly irrigate the eye, to the precise balance of electrolytes that creates a hostile environment for bacteria, the saltiness is not an addition. It's a reflection of the same salts that keep our nervous system running. Whether it's the basal tears protecting our vision, or the protein-rich psychic tears containing the natural painkiller leucine and kephalin that leave that slow-motion trail on the skin, Every drop is a sophisticated chemical signal. We are creatures of salt and water, and the fluid we spill when we're overwhelmed is the same substance that allows us to see the world around us. The question remains, if our tears are a wordless communication system, what else is our body communicating through the same salty chemistry in other fluids?